Darius A. Ross, DariusARoss.com, financial expert, political expert. The list goes on and on. He's helping a lot of people get through this financial craziness that's been going on for quite a long time. He's been putting out these predictions for quite a long time since I known him back in, I believe it was 2021. And he's been saying this stuff is coming, and it seems like he's pretty much on target. Unfortunately, that's the way the cookie crumbles. Darius, thanks so much for always coming on. You're a good friend, and I appreciate you always being a friend to the program.
I appreciate it, Rob. Looking forward to a great conversation today and being as insightful as possible can.
Right, so let's kick this around. Obviously, yesterday, which was Monday, August 5th, the stock market dropped 1,000 points. It was the worst day since 2022. Dow dropped 500 points. What's your take on all that?
This is just the beginning of the carnage. Keep in mind that overseas, the markets dropped almost, say, back to almost the time period of the 1980s. So to give you an idea how bad that is. So basically what we're looking at now, the market's lost probably, by my estimation, every 1 point represents at least $1 billion. So the market in the last, say, 48 hours around the world has probably lost close to 100, if not $1 billion, close to $100 trillion in market value. This has been carnage. What's more to come? There's more to come. This is just the beginning. This is stage one, the warning.
So Warren Buffett did drop 50% of his Apple stock. And obviously all stocks are pretty down as far as that goes. Obviously, Apple is one of the top stocks in the United States, not to mention around the world. What does that mean to you?
What that means is consumers now are constricted by their pocketbooks. What you're beginning to see is that the consumer-based population cannot afford to live anymore. So what you're seeing, not even just the United States, but around the world, the impact, financially speaking, on inflation has gone off the chain. So you're seeing people now that are regular middle-class people or lower middle-class people, even some wealthy people that are now feeling the impact of how the cost of living has changed. You're even seeing it with institutional investors. They're starting to give the keys back to these properties, as well as multifamily, industrial, and office buildings. Things have changed, and people need to wake up and realize what I said about a year ago to tighten the purse strings. Too late for that now. Now you got to just take the bath.
Right. I agree 100%. We're also hearing a lot about the yen. I interviewed a financial guy yesterday. He bought into the yen. It was having a, kind of and you can correct me if I'm wrong on this because I'm not the expert you are, but it was having, a bad break for quite a long time. And it seems like the yen is going up, the dollar is going down. Is that true? If that is true, what should people do about that? Even looking into that, hearing about that.
What you're looking at now is that with the whole BRICS currency, the British, or if you want to call it British pound, but the BRICS currency, meaning Brazil, Russia, India, China, and so forth. What is happening now? The British pound is taking an impact. The yen is never going to be back because Japan has been in the doldrums since the 1980s, and they haven't come back yet. And due to the population getting older and much older, you can expect Japan never to come back, at least in our lifetime. So what we're looking at now, you're looking at the beginning of the restructuring of the financial dollar, not just the dollar, US dollar, but the global dollar. You're going to see multiple currencies in a multiple basket, where countries are going to be trading in multiple currencies. So your US dollar is now going to have a strategic change across the board.
Darius A. Ross, DariusARoss.com. When did this start, Darius? I hear a lot about this going back to when Richard Nixon took us off the gold standards. Was that the start, or was that, a brief blip?
That was the start officially, but let me take it back even further. The start officially was when the United States was fighting three different wars. You have World War I, World War II, and the Korean War, as well as Vietnam. Then you tie that into what happened with Iraqi freedom, what happened with Desert Storm, and so forth. So we've been fighting wars for so long and still trying to repatriate the dollar, and in the meantime, rebuild these countries, and in the meantime, save these countries and so forth, that the United States now has put itself in a perilous position. The economic debt to try to maintain this country is now headed to $50 trillion. And I estimate by the time the new administration is over and said and done with by 2030, we'll be well over $100 trillion in debt.
So just to, keep pushing down on this, you're basically saying that the United States is the Roman Empire.
Correct.
Okay. All
So
right.
this
Just
is
so
just the
people know.
beginning of it.
Yeah. And we've seen this through the issues of spending, through the issues of immigration. The list goes on and on, the social system. We're not going to get too much into that today. I do want to hit on a lot of other topics just to do with the economy at large, since you are the expert on this, Darius. Let's talk about this. I know people have some issues with the person I'm going to bring up right now. He has been right on a lot of things. I'll just say it. I'm not talking about you, even though you've been right on quite a few things, Darius. I'm talking about Alex Jones. I know people have some bad thoughts about him. I don't agree with everything he says, but again, he's been right on quite a few things. Was listening to him and a financial guy the other day. They were talking about bank runs. It reminded me of when we've had these conversations talking about bank runs and how the FDIC, and I remembered this, it was like vivid in my mind from when you said it. And then I'm listening to Alex Jones and his financial person say it, that the FDIC is out of money. They went on Zoom, made a call about it. So talk about this. It seems like everything is coming to light now. And the problem is the American people have their eyes stuck on the Kardashians, Taylor Swift, and the woke Olympics.
Let me say this very quickly. If they were running the financial institutions in the United States today, we would end up with probably right now, as it is, you're going to be looking at what's 5,000 banks now will end up being down to 1,000. That's right off the bat. The FDIC does not have the funds to sustain the number of banks that they have. Their money might be somewhere around $7 or $8 billion. The financial institutions now are sitting on probably close to 80, $90 trillion. Example of that is Chase Manhattan, and you look at Wells Fargo and so forth. They don't have the financial resources to save those institutions. So the too big to fail has now come to light. So unfortunately speaking, if those institutions went under, there would be a massive, say, surge of, if you want to call it, bank failures. So we're looking at right now, regional banks are probably going to be the most impacted because they have the most loans outstanding in the commercial market. CMBS, which are collateralized mortgage obligations, they collateralized real estate obligations, are probably numbering somewhere in the $500 billion plus of loans that are outstanding that can't be paid back, as well as those loans that are collateralized against the debt that investors are now walking away from. So when you look at it overall, the financial institutions are in a very bad bind. They're going to have to take a hit. And the United States government is going to be on the hook for that. The trick to it is the investors aren't going to take the hit. The taxpayers are.
Can you talk a little bit louder or something with the microphone? It's a little kind of muffled, Darius.
Okay. Can you hear me now better?
Yeah, I think so. It's better now. Was that a headphone issue or what?
Yeah, I think it was.
Okay, very good. Sorry about that. I just wanted to make sure it wasn't like, that dim. Anyway, because the sound was pretty weak at times. But anyways, we'll move forward on. Again, Darius A. Ross, DariusARoss.com. Darius, I want to get into this because obviously the gas prices have dipped a little bit around the country, some areas more than others. We do still have inflation, of course. There has been talk about the inflation going down a little bit and then something happening, whatever it may be, another war. We see the Iran issue coming up. Obviously, that with Israel, Ukraine, and Russia still alive. God knows what will happen in this country. And that inflation goes down a little bit and then it goes skyrocketing up. Are you seeing a trend like that maybe coming pretty soon down the road?
Well, we're not just looking at inflation, we're looking at the price of goods and services at an all-time new high. Basic rent, for example, the average rent in the United States will average about $3,000 to $4,000 for one bedroom, and that will range from $3,000 to $4,000 upwards to $10,000. The average food or grocery bill per week will average between $250 and $400. The average car payment is close to $1,000. So let's do the mathematics. We are not in inflation; we are in the readjustment pricing of goods. So goods are now just being readjusted in pricing. So basically, even when we look at unemployment, those unemployment numbers came out, which made investors very skittish. But let's go a step further here. Unemployment, technically speaking, is right at 25% because we're
Right.
not counting People that never went back after COVID. We're not counting the people that were left out after 2007. We're not counting the people that have been left out of the system, period. So that's the case. The other part of that point is we look at the war in Iraq and we look at the aftermath of that, what happened there. We look at the loss of life that's now in Ukraine and the loss of life that's now in the Middle East. Couple that with the fact that all those weapons and machineries are still having to be produced. But unfortunately speaking, most of that machinery that's being produced and most of the weaponry now is a problem because now, unfortunately speaking, where's the money coming from to pay for all that? So that's causing discomfort there as well.
So is the issue to start World War III, you know, you invest in the country, you know, people start working in the factories again. It's back to like almost like that World War II mindset to try to get the country back in order again. Is that what you're saying, or is there something else?
There's something else. Unfortunately speaking, whether we like it or not, the situation in the Middle East is going to bring us to the brink of what I would call the nuclear war. And what we're looking at right now, any of their listeners and so forth, take a look at, there's a movie called 13 Days, put out in 2000, and also Fail Safe by Henry Fonda. Take a look at those two movies because those two movies are very classic as to what's happening right now. And unfortunately speaking, in either one of those cases, we're getting to the point where calm minds are not resolved because this back and forth teetering between the Middle East and Ukraine is going to ultimately put us into a state of being where we're going to be in a World War III. The only question of the hour is, will it be a nuclear war? Will it be an AI war? Will it be conventional, boots on the ground, special forces? The question depends. But with all that being said, the bottom line financially is somebody has to pay for the wars. And the problem is the American people now are basically broke, so they can't pay. So now you're going to have to turn around at some point in time, start realizing the American dollar is going to be impacted by all this. And certainly the cost of goods and services are going to increase based upon all these things.
What about the real estate market? You know, you touched on that a little earlier about the commercial real estate market, a lot of people walking away. I know BlackRock owns a lot of houses around the country. That's an understatement, honestly. Are they going to walk away from a lot of these houses that they're renting out to people? Because we are seeing, as you stated just a minute ago, it is a rental society now. People are not able to buy homes, especially with the mortgage payments and the interest rates.
We're going to be looking at a real estate market that's going to be real estate on sale, not for sale, but on sale. I can estimate and predict that you're going to be looking at real estate prices halved. You know, you can buy a house probably in the next 2 or 3 years for half the price market value now. Some people that bought houses at the top of the market are going to be hurting. They're going to walk away, and they're going to be looking at the fact that they can't get the equity out or anything like that. So when you're looking at across the board real estate prices, expect them to bottom out. Expect this not only to be a buyer's market, but expect sellers to take a big bath. Those that are sitting on ARMs, which are adjustable rate mortgages, are going to turn around and take the biggest hit of ever.
Is that just commercial or is that residential too?
Both.
Okay.
Real estate's never going to be the same. We're officially in a renter's market, which will take place probably over the next 20 or 30 years with Generation Alpha generation, with Generation Z and so forth, and millennials. But we're in a renter's economy. That's just the way it's going to be. It's not going to change. And unfortunately speaking, people are going to be doubling up and tripling up like dorms in these apartments.
But if just to interject quickly, Darius, if BlackRock is going to get rid of all these houses, who is going to be buying up all the houses that they're getting rid of? Because they own millions of houses around the country.
Some would go to investors, others would just sit there and be boarded up. It'll be like Resolution Trust in the 1990s. You'll have a lot of homes just sitting there, and ultimately speaking, the cities will be on the hook for the tax bills, the cities will be on the hook for construction, and you're just going to have a lot of homes just sitting. Nobody's buying because they can't afford it. Even at the bottom value prices, they still can't afford it. They don't have the money saved up.
So this is going to be like a squatting issue then.
Absolutely.
Okay, fair enough. You know, I want to talk about, because we always talk about, unfortunately, when you're on, it's very much doom and gloom, but that is how America is at the moment. Uh, so let's try to, I guess, continue on with the doom and gloom, unfortunately. Let's talk about crime. You know, we've heard throughout 2020 about the defund the police. There is a lot of bad things to do with that, whether it's the white community, the Black community, Hispanic, Asian, Native American community. It's going to hurt everyone because of the unemployment rate and also the inflation around the country where people can't afford goods and services. What are you seeing with crime the next decade? I guess we'll just say that.
Lawlessness. I mean, you can see it up in Maine. I spent a lot of time up there, and they're now starting to have these mob parties there, these mob events in the streets, and cars in the streets, and so forth. And the
What do
sheriff,
you mean? Hold on, just to interject. What does mob mean? Mob parties, mob car events? What does that mean?
you're literally seeing young people and even some middle of road people that are actually in these streets that are drag racing, doing donuts, they're doing raves and so forth in the middle of the street. So these towns are being onset by all different types of situations, whether it's crime, whether it's mob violence, running into the stores, the shoplifting, and so forth. So you're going to see more of that as the economy gets worse and as people get more desperate. So we're looking at a situation where people are going to be more lawless. I guarantee you.
What should the regular working person do to make sure that they stay safe, I guess, during these times?
See, I'm not an advocate. I mean, even though I'm not an advocate of gun violence, or I'm not an advocate of necessarily
It's
harming
not
themselves.
technically violence, though, if you are defending yourself and your property.
See, that's the problem. A lot of times, this is going to be a situation where people are actually going to find themselves trigger happy. Somebody might cross you the wrong way, or you get road rage or whatever else. So
Right.
what I am saying is that everybody now has security cameras around the house. So now it's going to be to a point where you're going to be kind of like a wired up kind of thing. The police can only respond so frequently, and their hands are tired because you're not seeing a lot of people wanting to go law enforcement. So that's becoming a problem. At some point in time, I guess you might see the military in the streets,
Yeah.
try to contain things. But we're at a point in time where people are fed up and they're angry and aggravated. So you're seeing it even here in New York where people actually are carrying around knives and carrying around weapons. There's conceal and carry all over the place. So we're going to have a problem. I mean, if there's not a solution to fix this and turn this around, we're going to have a major problem.
So let's talk about the solutions. We have Kamala Harris against Donald Trump. We have a vice presidential pick that was just put out today as far as Tim Walz, the governor of Minnesota, a progressive kind of guy. Let's talk about that firstly, and then we'll get more deeper into the election as we move into the interview. What's your take on this vice presidential pick by Kamala Harris?
My pick was JB Pritzker, to be honest
Right.
with you. I like JB, he's a real cool guy and so forth. But Tim Walz is a Midwesterner. He's got a great appeal. He's an educator. He's going to appeal to the education community. He communicates well. He's been in the military. He has no combat service, and he's not particularly in big business. So I think he's a middle of the road guy. He's a common man guy. He appeals to pretty much everybody. The educator, the common man. He's had enough experiences in his own life where he's gone through things in his own life, whether it was personal experiences or family experiences. He's taken losses and so forth. So he understands the common man experience. So I think he'll be an ideal candidate.
Is Vance and Waltz almost the same candidate, just different ages?
Just about, actually, because they both come from working class environments. They both taken hits in life, and they both been through things. I think the difference of it is how the candidates are placed. Because in Vance's case, I personally speaking would not want to personally speaking be in a situation where, as a candidate, that the very man that I'm backing up is the very man that I knocked,
Right.
a lot of my voice and my verbiage and so forth. So that's a little. I mean, I'd be a little uncomfortable if I were Mr. Trump having him next to me because, you can't serve two masters. I have a problem with that. But in Mr. Walsh's case, I think it's going to be a good situation.
All right, so let's dive deeper into this. Obviously, we've went back and forth earlier on in the 2020, 2021 when Biden won. You and I were speaking about Kamala Harris as the next president of the United States. We talked earlier on this year. It looked like Trump was really going to wipe the floor with Biden. Biden drops out. A lot of different things have taken place since we first spoke about Kamala Harris. And now you are saying that, at least from the last time we spoke a couple weeks back, that Donald Trump was going to win this election. anything different now with obviously the two vice presidential picks, Biden dropping out. Kamala is the leader of the Democrat Party now. What's your take?
I'm going back to when we had a situation where I first called Kamala as being the ideal candidate. I still stick with that she's the ideal candidate and she will be the president based on a couple of different things. When there was Mr. Biden and Mr. Trump together, Mr. Trump was going to basically clean house with Mr. Biden just based on the circumstances. But now the problem with Mr. Trump is now the very same things he said about Mr. Biden are the very same things he's going to have said about himself. The age factor, whether he's qualified, whether he has the ability, his track record, and so forth. So in Ms. Harris' case, the thing of it is that she's going to be good for business, number one. She's going to be good for what will be an economy standpoint that basically we're looking at now. When the economy actually peters out, correct? And it peters out to the point where as we get everything out of the system, we get all the debt, everything out of the system, she can govern. Right now, we need the market to fail and things for, all intents and purposes to go down to the lowest level. But putting that into place, if you have two of them together, I would definitely say it's still going to be Ms. Harris. Pretty much, it's going to be squeaky tight finish, but putting her over the top.
I think it's I still think it's Trump's to lose, and that's not my guy. Obviously, you know that. You know who I'm with, and unfortunately, they're not giving him a fair shot. But regardless of that, I think it's still Trump's for the take. And if he doesn't screw up, I think he's ran against Hillary Clinton. He knows how to handle a woman candidate. He just has to not make too many flub ups. I think the JD Vance flub up with the kids thing, even though I agree with people should be having more kids in this country, I think that's a good thing. But I think that him saying that they should get more votes, I think that was a flub up. It's tongue in cheek. We get it. But a lot of people that are not like you and I, Darius, don't really get the tongue in cheek. They just hear the soundbite on the mainstream media and they just roll with the punches on it. So there's some mishaps right now, but they have to get, back in the game. I do have faith in them to get back in the game, even though it's not really my team, but I just don't, I can't vote for that other group. I'm sorry. I won't do it. I'm not on that team anymore. Sorry. Can't do it. Anyways, we'll move forward. So just to kind of push the last two questions, I should say, down here. Is the market, in your opinion, more likely to fail before the election or after the election? Or does it even depend on who gets in? Because they are holding this up with bubblegum wrap right now.
My prediction that the market will take a significant hit once again, probably to the tune between now and November, probably dropping another 4,000 or 5,000 points. Whoa. And then after the election, within 6 months of that, I see a complete restructuring the market down to where the original levels were around between 3,000 and 7,000 points. So I see carnage after the election. But right now, it'll be a big hit, but it'll still be a hit that can kind of float on from. Jay Powell is going to turn around and pacify people by keeping things consistent. So they're going to keep the peace right now because, the cat's out of the barrel. Everybody knows unemployment is higher than it should be. Inflation is where it shouldn't be. And people are paying through the nose for the goods and services. So it's clear that things are changing. It's clear
personally, I think, Darius, that they're trying to prop it up until after the election. If Trump gets in, they just let the thing go right down on him, blame it on him, and they change the whole damn narrative on that. And if you have lawlessness in the streets and Trump is president, it ruins the Republican Party for a decade. And you have people that hate the Republican Party. That's just my thoughts from just my own personal opinion. Anyways, I don't think that's too far-fetched either.
I mean, be honest with you, either way it goes, there's going to be more lawlessness in the streets. And either way it goes, whether it drops on her or him, the bottom line of it is, if the market drops on a female as well as a minority president, we're going to have an issue where there will never be another minority president or, for that matter, a major candidate in office. So either way it goes, it's going to be problems.
Are we seeing this already to somewhat of an extent? It's not really a black-white thing or black-white Hispanic thing. like it more so probably is in this country. But in England, with the Muslim community and with the Hamas terrorists in there, was the issue with they were trying to rape white girls over there, and there's anarchy in the streets, and the English government is protecting the Muslim immigrants over their own people, and they're retaliating right now. And there's almost like a very small civil war right now in that country.
You're saying, could we see that here? Absolutely. I mean, we'd see it here more among the Hispanic community because now you're seeing more. I mean, in the last probably year, you see more Anglo women get attacked and raped and or killed by the Hispanic immigrants and so forth. Now, that's not necessarily coincidental, or is it coincidental? Because from Florida, there was one in Ohio, there was one out west, and so forth. So, you know, crime is crime, right? So we can say, okay, this was just some crime that happened. But on the other hand, the issue of the hour is these things are happening and it's going to be shaded a certain way and it's going to make the Hispanic people look bad. So you're right, it's happening the same thing here, just in different degree. Correct. There's a new character.
I want to ask you this last question. Again, the market is very volatile. The economy is very volatile right now. It could drop any second. Should people still be trying to some way get ready, or as you stated earlier, they pretty much 100% missed the boat already?
Bottom line of it is right now, I would say to all the listeners, as I've been saying for the last couple of years, you need to prepare yourself for what the inevitable is. But right now, what you should be doing is getting those credit card debts eliminated, getting some cash set aside, preparing yourself for in the event that you're, as we're seeing now, hundreds of thousands of jobs being knocked off every single month. So you need to get yourself prepared for it because the severance pay a while back was 6 or 7 months, if not a year. Now the severance pay isn't there because these companies are liquidating. So bottom line of it is folks need to be prepared for whatever, financially speaking, and not be in a situation where the debt is too high and or they can survive for a year if they find themselves financially unable to have a job.
I know we said that was the last question, but I want to get in one more question. It's an audience question. I want to make sure this is a very important question. With the fail of the U.S. currency, the push towards Bitcoin, and obviously that's not doing well, are we looking towards this as a move towards the CBDC? I know that we're kind of already in a CBDC already because most people don't use cash. There's a lot of stores around the country that don't even accept cash. It's strictly credit card. So what is your opinion on that? Are they going to fully use this tanking of the currency to go to CBDC, that digital surveillance? They can cut you off any 10 seconds. Again, that's somewhat here already, but I guess I would be saying they would be going extremely full tilt on this.
You're always going to have cash as currency, but the bottom line of it is 99.9% of the transactions are digital. And with that in mind, distributed currency, the if you want to call it digital money, is here to stay. It's not going anywhere, but you will still have cash. Unfortunately speaking, most businesses now are finding it easier to do the digital currency because it makes it easy for them to bookkeep. It makes it easy for them to move their books around and make sure that their accounting systems are in place. So digital currency is here to stay. Is it the system moving us toward that period? Absolutely. But you will still have physical money.
I find that strange that it's easier because I know that a lot of credit cards charge surcharges. But I mean, I guess people are more than happy than willing to pay the surcharges.
Well, it's easier to have a situation where you just flip out a card versus pulling out cash and lose the cash or whatever else. If you lose the card, you can stop the card, get another card. You can have 100 cards and so forth. So it's
but the surcharge is for the business, Darius. That's what I guess what I was talking about. Is that company is paying that surcharge every time there's a swipe there, whereas the cash does no. Go ahead.
Yeah, just pass on to the consumer.
True.
That's one of the reasons why the prices of goods have gotten outrageous.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for clarifying that. I didn't realize or even think about that. But regardless of that, we'll end there. Again, Darius A. Ross, DariusARoss.com. Darius, thanks for always being a good friend to the program. Appreciate you all the time coming on.
Thank you so much, Rob. Take care.